Hello and welcome to MK True Crime. Happy Halloween, everyone. This is a special Halloween edition of MK True Crime. I'm Mark Eiglarsh, your host for today. I'm a former prosecutor, been a criminal defense attorney for over 30 years in spite of my youthful appearance, adjunct law professor. What else? I'm an avid pickleball player, and you can reach me at speaktomark.com. We have wonderful guests I can't wait to introduce you to. But first, let's talk about what's on the docket today, what we're going to be talking about. An actress in a major horror movie franchise filed a lawsuit in federal court this past week against producers alleging, "You didn't pay me enough royalties." Also, she says she was sexually harassed. Does she have a case? Our experts will tell you. Also, rapper Julio Fulio was gunned down last year. And there's a first-degree murder trial going on. The defendant, Alicia Andrews, is fighting for her life on first-degree murder charges, and we'll bring you the latest on that case. Plus, you're going to want to stick around for this. We're going to revisit the real 1970s case where the fear of poisoned Halloween candy originates. Yeah, the guy who bummed out my Halloween when I was younger. We're going to talk about him. I'm joined today by an all-star panel, and I'm not just saying that because it's written there, and it's not written there. I'm saying because I really am privileged to be around two phenomenal attorneys to get to chat with them and get their thoughts on these cases. They're both MK True Crime contributors. We've got Ashley Merchant. She's a top-notch criminal defense attorney from Atlanta, Georgia, and she's also the woman that Fannie Willis actually has nightmares about. True story, yeah. We've also got Matt Murphy. You've seen him everywhere. Phenomenal former prosecutor, did tons of homicides. He's author of the book called The Book of Murder. And I've heard he's the only person who can actually scare serial killers. Yeah, that's also true. All right, welcome you guys.
Good to see you. Happy Halloween.
Yes. What are you guys wearing? You got costumes? Matt, what are you wearing?
Something scary? I'm handing out candy, non-poison candy this year. And every year it's a little different, Mark. It's like sometimes I get like 100 kids that show up my door, and then sometimes I'll have like 3, and then I'll gain 5 pounds because I'll eat all that candy by the end of the month.
Right.
So.
And you, Ash, what are you dressing up as?
I've already eaten half of my candy. But we have some new puppies, and they're going to be aliens. So my daughter and I are thinking about being, we were talking about being alien attackers, but I think we're going to be astronauts.
Nice. Okay. Clean, keeping it clean. Very nice. Let's jump right in and talk about a movie called The Terrifier. One that the Golden Globes and the Oscars never really took a serious look at, for good reason. I looked at it, and candidly, it looks more like a porn movie, really. The acting is not great. But that doesn't mean that Catherine Corcoran, who has sued producers and series director Damien Leone, doesn't necessarily have a legitimate claim. Does she or doesn't she? She's alleging breach of contract and the distribution of sexually explicit materials without her consent. She filed a lawsuit this past Sunday in federal court in California, Matt's place. She filed it October 26th. I'll jump to you, Matt, right out of the gate. We'll discuss the facts. You're in California. It almost seems like we hear about this all the time, right? Low budget movie, B-list actresses, then later claiming somehow they were taken advantage of. Young actress, fraud committed against them, sexual harassment, betrayal. What do you make of this lawsuit, Matt?
Well, I'm just happy they filmed it in LA, to be honest with you, because so much production has been driven out of California because of unions and insurance and everything else. This is an interesting one, right? Because there's allegations of sexual harassment that our attorneys have put forward, and essentially hostile workplace because apparently she was hanging upside down during this one scene. But then there's allegations also that there was non-consensual nudity, and that's one that I'm kind of having a hard time wrapping my head around. She was an actor in this film, and she was hung upside down for a scene that apparently took many hours to shoot, according to the lawsuit. But my take on this, just shooting from the hip here, Mark, it seems like this is it's a contract dispute where, for whatever reason, they were unable to resolve it, and I think we're seeing a little bit of the kitchen sink thrown in the plaintiff's case.
Yeah. So
I don't know how the statute hasn't run on anything outside the contract elements of this. You know, and I don't know how you claim you know, that it was non-consensual.
Yes.
When she's shooting a film. She took her own shirt off, I guess, for the scene.
That's questionable, you know, right? I mean, a little questionable, yeah, I mean, right? Who put the gun to her head? Right?
Yeah, shooting from the hip. You know, that's my initial impression on this when I looked into it a little bit.
Yeah. All right.
I don't know. Yeah. What do you think, Ashley?
I mean, I completely agree. I think that was just some fluff thrown in to aggravate people because that's what gets headlines, talking about her being topless, talking about the horrific work conditions, you know, having to be upside down. I mean, that's why people click on it. So I think that's nothing more than really clickbait. And they knew that, putting that into the complaint, they knew that that's what's going to get people sort of interested in this, because otherwise it's just a breach of contract and nobody really cares about that. That's not newsworthy. The judge isn't going to care. Nobody's going to care. I do think that they may have some liability if they really are going to use the defense. They don't keep records. And I think what that probably did was just piss everybody off and cause the lawsuit to be filed when the producers are saying, oh, well, we didn't pay you because we don't keep any records. They're making a lot of money off of this. They should have just kept paying her royalties and avoided this lawsuit. So I think they may have something on the breach of contract, but I think the rest of it's just fluff.
Let's hear from her. There's a clip that we've got. She speaks to the dangerous scene that she performed in 2023. Let's play that clip and I'll get your thoughts on the other side.
Tell us about shooting that now iconic scene.
There were a lot of things there that were pretty dangerous, and we're very candid about that. You know, it was a condemned building. We didn't have a rig, which, you know, as somebody who does do stunts, you know, and Jenna, who is an incredible stunt performer, will tell you, like, is really necessary for something like that. Flipping like that, there's this rush that happens. So you're at risk of seizure and brain trauma.
Okay. All right. She makes a point. Matt, let me ask you this. So I understood that during this, one of the scenes anyway, she's hung upside down by her ankles over 10 hours in freezing temperatures. She's topless, although she claims she didn't want to be topless. Who's that on? Like, did producers screw her over? Did she not know? You know, how do you handle this legally?
Yeah, I think legally, I you know, again, my gut here. I don't specialize in plaintiffs' cases out of Hollywood, but there's a thing called an MSJ, which are letters you guys are going to immediately recognize. It means motion for summary judgment. I got a feeling that a lot of these allegations are going to go away by the federal judge. They're going to grant, I bet, they're going to grant a bunch of motions to dismiss. They'll probably let the contract stuff go forward, just like Ashley said. But yeah, I mean, you're talking about a young actress in Hollywood that is trying to make it and winds up. This isn't even like a B slasher movie. It's a C slasher movie. And I'm with you, Mark. And I love Halloween, guys. Probably my favorite holiday of all. I think I've seen every scary movie. This is one that it's got a huge cult following. The clown himself has become famous. But I couldn't even get to the scene that they're talking about because the movie was so freaking bad. But
horrible.
You know, you never know what's going to hit or not hit. And I'm with Ashley on it. You know, if there's legitimate contract things that she may be entitled to, but a bunch of this stuff, a bunch of these allegations, like, you've got a statute of limitations for the viewer on most of this, and it's a lot shorter than 10 years. It's sometimes you can toll or extend things based on date of discovery in plaintiffs' cases, but I can't think of anything on there as far as the salacious allegations that are going to survive a statute of limitations challenge. But again, you know, these lawyers might be great. They might really know what they're doing, but I think Ashley's right at the end. I bet this boils down to a contract dispute and maybe a payday for her.
Well, let's talk about the numbers, Ashley. Okay. I thought this was like, why are we even talking about this Nothing Burger movie? And then I learned there was a sequel, and then there's a third one coming out, and it collectively has grossed more than $105 million at the global box office. Plus there's video profits, there's themed events.
There's an app.
You know, right. There's money here. And she agreed to an extremely low upfront per diem rate with the understanding that she would get 1%. She's made less than like $2,000 on this thing. Sounds to me like someone's screwing her over. Yes? No?
Yes. I mean, I think they are on the breach of contract. On the other stuff, the other claims about the awful working conditions and how horrible it was she had to take her top off. She agreed to all that. Free will. She wasn't coerced. She wasn't tricked. She wasn't underage. She agreed to that. Maybe she's having some second guesses now. I think all of that was added in to reach a settlement. And that's probably what's going to happen because they most likely are breaching the contract if they had a contract. And I don't know that we've actually seen because the one that's attached to the complaint isn't signed. So, if they actually had a contract that said she was entitled to this 1%, it's probably going to come down to a situation where they just have to figure out the numbers. And all this other stuff is going to be struck. It's going to be what we call surplusage, which is kind of a boring word, but it just means it's not relevant. The awful working conditions, how horrible it was for her, that's not relevant. That was put in just to make a splash, just so people actually paid attention to this because otherwise it's not relevant. And she's still acting. She wants her name to be in the news and putting those allegations. That's why people are talking about it.
Okay, Matt, what about the producer's response? I love this. When asked about, where's my money? His response was, I don't keep records. Really? Can you do that? Can you say that?
No, you can't say that. And if you do, Ashley's exactly right. You're gonna take a hit in this either settlement or no juror wants to hear that. No federal judge is going to want to hear that. And and I think that I think Ashley's spot on. The one thing that I would caution the attorney though on this, and I know you guys both have the exact same thought, like when you got a legitimate contract dispute like this, and there's going to be some element where her credibility is going to matter, I would really want to shy away from having her do too many interviews while the case is pending regarding the horrible working conditions, because it can undermine her credibility, I think. If she's a professional, she's got a really good contract claim, and she very well might. The talking about how hard it was and brain damage and all this stuff. I think that does not serve her or the case very well. But then again, I've represented a couple of actors in Hollywood, and keeping them away from cameras can be a tall task. So.
Yeah. Let me ask you about this, Ashley. Again, devil's advocate, there's a lot of allegations made in this federal lawsuit, and one of them concerns the conditions. We talked about her being topless. She insisted that she wanted to wear underwear on the day of shooting, but apparently they claimed that they wouldn't let her. Now, I've learned through this lawsuit, because I don't specialize in this area of law, that apparently the Screen Actors Guild requires written consent if they're going to get an actress to go topless, right? You read that, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely.
They either have her written consent or they don't. If they don't, isn't that problematic?
It is problematic, but it's problematic because that's a union. The Screen Actors Guild is a union. It's not a statute. It's not a law. It is a union regulation. So they've got their own remedies for that. If they violated that, they're going to have to deal with the Screen Actors Guild, SAG, as it's commonly known. And that was another thing. SAG had a minimum daily rate, $100 that they had negotiated. It's just like any other union. They had negotiated that, and that's what she was paid. Is it minimal? Yes. Were the conditions awful? Yes. Could she have walked away? Yes.
Got it. So Matt, final question on this, because I'm eager to talk about this Tampa murder case. Let me ask you, final question. They're seeking a full accounting. Aren't they in that ballpark when they file this lawsuit? Won't a judge at least allow them to find out what the numbers are so they know whether she's been screwed over or not?
I think the answer to that is yes, Mark. I think that a judge is gonna, they're gonna approach this with a sober mind and they're gonna want to do it right, and that's something you're certainly entitled to. But as Ashley said, that's super boring. That's why it's not leading it. And as an attorney, of course, you seize right on that. And I totally agree. Judge is going to give them that, and almost certainly. And then we're going to see the money, and then I bet she gets a piece of it at the end. That's my guess on this one.
If you've experienced bloating or general gut discomfort at some point, you know that doctors tend to give the same advice. Eat slowly, take a walk after meals, steer clear of processed foods. But let me tell you about Cowboy Colostrum. Packed with proteins, natural growth factors, and antimicrobial peptides, Cowboy Colostrum can help strengthen your immune system and repair your gut lining, leading to less bloating and better digestive health. They use high-quality ingredients sourced 100% from American grass-fed cows. Just add a 3-gram scoop of their chocolate, vanilla, or strawberry flavor to your coffee or smoothie, and you're good to go. No artificial flavors, just naturally delicious ingredients. For a limited time, get up to 25% off their entire order. Just head to cowboycolostrum.com/MK and use code MK at checkout. That's 25% off when you use the code MK at cowboycolostrum.com/MK. After you purchase, you can tell them our show sent you.
All right, let's move to a murder case, something that Matt certainly knows a heck of a lot about, and Ashley defends, and so do I. We're talking about a case involving the death of rapper Julio Fulio, whose name, candidly, I've never heard until I was told we're doing this segment. And when I joked that he sang our wedding song, somebody believed me earlier. Rapper Julio Fulio was killed by someone, and prosecutors in Tampa believe it was Alicia Andrews and about 4 other people. They're going to trial later on. She's been separated and she's going to trial now. She's facing a potential life sentence here in Florida, and she allegedly stalked this guy and Julio Fulio's real name, by the way, is Charles Jones. And Alicia's boyfriend, Isaiah Chance, allegedly is a gang member, and they together served as lookouts. And the state is saying they followed him, and the other ones came to kill him. Ashley, you've enjoyed following this case. What's your thoughts?
I have definitely enjoyed following this case. And I think one of my favorite things is just saying his name, Julio Fulio.
Sure.
It is kind of fun to say, but it's unfortunate because he was shot down, he was gunned down.
Mm-hmm.
But, I think this is one of those cases where they have chosen to prosecute Andrews first. And she's the low-hanging fruit. She's the easier target for them. But she's not the one that they're seeking the death penalty for. So I kind of think this is a practice trial almost for them, because they've got the other 4 people, the other 4 gentlemen, who are all the ones that they're saying actually did this crime. They actually committed the shooting. And they're saying that Andrews was really, they're trying to say that she was deeply enmeshed, but that's not what the evidence has shown so far. It's shown that she was there. She might have had some inkling as to what was happening, but whether or not she actually conspired, whether or not she actually made an agreement, conspired to do this, enough to be proven that she was an accomplice, I think that's kind of far-fetched. But what's really caught a lot of folks' eyes is the heat in the trial, the very difference between the prosecution, the judge, and the defense. There's been a lot of really heated exchanges between them. And, just the defense is just having a hard time holding their own in that courtroom.
Yeah, I'm going to play a few clips in just a moment. Matt, put on your prosecutor's hat. It's not hard for you to do. Let's say they get the conviction against her, right? What are the chances that you as the prosecutor then say, all right, listen, you were the lookout. You played the least significant role. We really want these other guys, and we want to put them to death. Are you flipping this gal against them, or you don't do it?
Well, and of course, you went right to what we're all thinking, Mark, on that. I am certain that behind the scenes, they've made great efforts with this young woman to get her to flip already. In fact, I would guarantee it. And you see this, especially in gang cases and theories of attenuated liability. You often go, exactly like Ashley said, you go for the lowest hanging fruit, you go for the weakest link in the chain, and you try to flip them or get them to testify and cooperate against everybody else. And I cannot tell you guys, I know you've seen the same, where you have a young woman who's in this situation who chooses young love over her best advice from her counsel and her own legal self-interest. And it never, ever works out well for them. So, yeah, I think if they convict her, it may be too late for the defense, but I'm sure that behind the scenes there were efforts to do that already.
She'll get life, so the defense is putting on their knee pads, and they're going to beg to the prosecutors, to do something. They're gonna go Hail Mary on this appeal and think it's going to come back on appeal. They'll be looking to cooperate. Yeah. I want to play some of these clips. Let's go to clip number 1. This was actually played at trial. It shows the Foolio shooting. Let's take a look at that first. Okay, so we see that. Let's go to another clip. Let's jump to the best friend. This is a piece of evidence. A best friend of Alicia Andrews is saying certain things. I don't want to give it away. Let's play clip number 2.
You said you have known her for over a decade. How would you describe the nature of your relationship?
She's one of my bestest friends.
Did Alicia Andrews ever mention to you that Isaiah Chance was in a gang?
She mentioned that there were rumors that he was in a gang.
And she specifically told you that she was aware that he was in a gang. Is that correct?
She was aware that he was tied in or affiliated within a gang, yes.
Okay, so she hangs out with a gang member. That's not game, set, and match, Matt, right? That's just one little factor, right? You would agree.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, but there's more, right?
There's more. Right.
But it does hurt, Ashley. You don't want to have a client who's known to knowingly hang out with a gang member, because gang members do violence. You are accused of a significant act of violence, right?
100%. And that is why the state put this evidence in. They want to paint her as a bad person with making bad choices. That's the whole point of this. But is it really relevant that she knew her boyfriend hung out with gangsters or was a gangster?
Matt would tell you yes. Matt would say, I like that fact.
And I think we'd have a
piece of
great
the puzzle.
argument. I mean, and he would argue that. And I would argue it's not relevant. I would argue that it doesn't prove or doesn't tend to prove or disprove a fact in controversy. She's not charged with being a gang member. They are, but she's not. And she's being tried separately. So I would have fought my butt off to try and keep any reference of gang out of her trial, since she is not charged with gang charges.
Okay. Here, I want to have a little fun. Matt, I keep playing you as the prosecutor. I want you to be the defense attorney for a second. You know what they're arguing. Pretend like you're the defense lawyer. What are the defense saying? I mean, there's a lot of evidence against her. What's the best argument here?
Oh, the best argument here is either she was totally in the dark and didn't know what they were going to do, which may find some traction. There's some problems because of she wrote a text message to one of her friends, might have been the woman being examined in the clip we just saw, where she said he need to die.
Yeah, we should play that clip. Let's pause for a second. Let's play that clip and I'll let you continue. That's clip number 3.
And then the defendant then texts back to you, and this is January 21st of 2021, 8:39 a.m. Girl, I don't like Foolio. LMFAOOO, ugly ass bitch. He need to die.
Ooh. I'll let Matt go, but Matt, get ready, Ashley. You got to defend that. That's not great. Matt, what would you argue?
Yeah, look, the number one, she can hate him, but she has to do something to effectuate the actual killing itself. And the accusation is that she's essentially working as a lookout. Right. And there's 2 ways you can skin that cat prosecution-wise. One, you can say she's a full-blown co-conspirator, which is a little more complicated. The way I always preferred to do these as a prosecutor was, it's just aiding and abetting, because it's a much lower bar. Did they do anything to promote, facilitate, or encourage it in any way? And that's where I think probably the most persuasive part of the prosecution here is that she knowingly aided in some way. Defense-wise, I think what they're going to do is they'll say, hey, she didn't know. And if she did, she is not a gang member, but she suddenly found herself in this gang world, even though I think she's with the guy for a couple of years. And she's intimidated by these guys, and she goes along with it. And all 3 of us, we've seen that run in probably many, many times in murder cases just like this, where the girlfriend of some dude who's really involved in the murder knows more than she's willing to give up and did something to help. And those are kind of the 2 go-tos. She didn't know, and if she did, she was intimidated. Right. And sometimes those work, especially when you've got really, really bad guys that are coming up next. So trying her separately is a good strategic move by the prosecution, because if the shooter or one of the guys they really got dead to rights is sitting next to her, I think juries are a lot more likely to cut her slack and say, they get justice out of getting the trigger man or the main mover in the conspiracy. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, if I'm trying this case, I like that the bad guys are nowhere near her, so I can crap all over them. It's always comfortable when I'm trying a case with co-defendants, and I want to say they might have known, but not my sweet innocent dolphin that got caught up in the tuna net. Ashley, I always tell my law students that it is critical. The most important part of the trial that nobody talks about, because it's not on any TV, cheesy drama or movies, is jury selection. Oh, yeah. And I need to know whether I've got jurors who will refuse to punish my client for merely being present. Because that's the argument, as Matt talked about, the Schultze defense. I know nothing. I see nothing, from Hogan's Hero. It's a long time ago. But she didn't know, and she was merely present with this bad guy, right?
I would have that
jury selection.
I would have that blown up, that jury charge on merely present. I would have it blown up as big as the court would let me and as much as I could get through the door to show mere presence, because that's a defense. But that statement that he needs to die, that was in 2021. So if I was defending her, I would distance her from that statement as much as humanly possible. And I would turn it around on the prosecution, say that's all they got. They got something 3.5 years old that says he needs to die. Don't you think if she had said that he should die in 2024, 2023, they would bring it? They're bringing you some old ass text from 2021 where she's joking about not liking him because that's all they got. They have no other text. They have no texts about her talking about this murder recently. Hey, let's go to Tampa to off this guy, anything like that. And you bet if they had that, the jury would be hearing that. And they're not.
Yeah.
Great point, Mark.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. That's why I'd be afraid to try it against Ashley.
I was just going to say, I love it.
That makes me nervous. That would make me afraid right there.
Good.
But also, I'll tell you what, if it was Ashley on this, Ashley, and I don't want to speak for you, but Ashley would have flipped this chick. Immediately, she would have been on the witness bus. Ashley would have had the client control to get her to do the right thing. I bet.
She would try, but she would fight back. She'd say, I'm no rat.
I would, and I'm glad
snitch.
you brought that up, though, because I was thinking about this when you were talking about it earlier, Matt. So they offered her, I think it was something like 18 years. And I was thinking about how hard it would be to try and convince, what is she, 22 now? Yeah. Can you imagine? To a prosecutor, that seems like a deal because she's facing life. But from defending human beings, when you're 22, 18 years, that's a hard thing to sell.
And here in Florida, we do not have parole.
Right.
She'll be doing 85% of her time. It's not going to be easy for her. So I don't know, as great as Ashley is, I don't know that she would have been able to flip this gal. Now, listen, I want to shift to something else. In this trial, there were some fireworks in court. We were talking about it before we started on air. And Ashley, we loved that this judge is fiery and the defense has issues. Let's play clip number 4 and we'll talk about the significance.
You invoke the rule of sequestration. That means all witnesses, it's incumbent upon the lawyers as the professionals that they are to tell all of their witnesses as well. You're not to be discussing the case. You're not to be watching it on court TV. And apparently that didn't happen, right? Didn't happen. Inexcusable.
Well, Your Honor,
inexcusable.
If I may respond, we are professionals just like every other attorney in this courtroom. The bigger point that I was making is that the way that Mr. Harmon has been speaking to this side of the table is unprofessional. It's disrespectful. He's done it in front of the jury as well, and there has not been any attempt by the court to intervene in that. So I want to make sure that it's on the record that it's inappropriate. The rising tone is unnecessary, and it's disrespectful, and it's inappropriate.
Ms. White, everything that's happened in this trial is on the record. Everything's been videotaped. The conduct of everybody involved, okay? And the failure of the defense to tell their own witnesses not to talk about the case is inexcusable, and that's a matter of record.
Oh, I cringe because I've been there. I've been there with tough judges, right?
Yes.
I had one every time I asked for a sidebar, she rolled her eyes. Okay. And then I said, listen, Judge, with utmost respect, when I asked for a sidebar, I appreciate it if you wouldn't show the jurors your disdain. She lost it. She cried. She was horrible. Anyway, just very briefly before we move on, because I want to get to some great topics in segment 2. What do you make of that, Ashley?
I mean, to me, they should have just admitted it. That's a mess up. You have to tell your witnesses about the rule of sequestration. If you mess that up, we've all messed that up. It is an honest mistake. If they did make an honest mistake, just admit it. Just admit it. I'm sorry. Instead, they're just this smoke and mirrors like, oh, well, they're being disrespectful. You messed up.
And I'm curious, Matt, did you ever have it out with judges? I mean, I would think that they all loved you and admired you and supported you.
Oh, yeah. Right? I wish... Yeah, they bake me cookies every time I go into court. Listen, even now when I go in LA, nobody knows me in LA County compared to like Orange County, which is where I was a DA. And it's like I stepped in dog crap in the parking lot most of the time. No, we watched that clip. We all had PTSD. I saw the both of you, like 2 real trial attorneys on here with me. We've all been there. We've all been yelled at. And look, the judge is right. They screwed up and they turn around and try to blame the prosecutor. Right. But can I do a weird parallel just real quick?
Yeah.
You know, on in the gang world, and there's a lot of rappers that come from that world. You know, on the Tupac Shakur murder, there's a famous video from the casino. I don't know if you guys remember that. Where there's like 20 guys. That it's a big fight. It's a big melee. And then there's the shooting between the two cars where Tupac and Suge Knight are both shot. Going back on that, if you look at that, the gang lifestyle, almost every guy in that video, these young men, they're all dead now or in prison. Every single one of them. And now it's literally down to every one of them has either been killed or they've done 10 years or more in California State Prison. And it's just, this is an interesting parallel. The gang life goes nowhere but death or jail. It
That's
really,
right.
and it's, you see it happening again now. These kids are young, and that was a goofy photo. His hair is silly. He looks like, you know, Sideshow Bob from The Simpsons. But that's a young man. It's
easy,
tragic,
judgmental fella, old guy.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm with you. And for all the kids watching, yeah, don't join gangs. Great
Yeah.
message, Matthew. We have some great topics that we're going to continue to talk about. In just a moment, we're going to talk about a lawsuit where somebody sued Reese's Pumpkins because somehow the picture didn't match what they got on the inside. And we're also going to talk about the case of poisoned Halloween candy. It's going to be really interesting. Stick with us. Remember, you can always email us. We all love to read your comments. We actually do read this stuff. Email us at mktruecrime@devilmaycaremedia.com. Let me give you the short version. mktruecrime@devilmaycaremedia.com. Couldn't do it shorter. We'll be back in just a moment.
Throughout history, what's the first freedom tyrants try to silence? Religious liberty. Because when your rights come from God, not government, they cannot be taken away. Lose this freedom and you lose America. That's why First Liberty Institute is offering a free guide, America's First Freedom, the Antidote to Tyranny. As we approach America's 250th birthday, learn how to protect, defend, and celebrate this sacred right, just as our founders intended. Get your free copy today at firstliberty.org/Megan. That's firstliberty.org/Megan. Get yours today, firstliberty.org/Megan, paid for by First Liberty Institute.
Is the packaging for Reese's Pumpkins misleading? A question that I ask almost daily, and I bug my wife about it all day long. Really important topic. Well, that was the crux of a class action lawsuit against candy maker Hershey. No, really, some lawyer in Florida, thank you for giving us more crap for people to use against us, filed a lawsuit saying that the picture on the outside of the wrapper, picture like a pumpkin with a nice smile, right? And then you go to the inside and it's some blob that's loosely shaped like the item on the outside, but doesn't really look like it, okay? I mean, is there an argument there? It's kind of like, listen, the photos that they have of burgers in any fast food place never look like the burger that I get. So you're really going to have a lot of lawsuits, okay? But somebody did file a lawsuit, and I'll toss it to you, Matt. Your thoughts on this case?
You know, I'm sure these are fine lawyers, these plaintiffs' attorneys. I don't want to throw any shade, but I read this. I had to read it twice because I couldn't believe somebody certified a class on this. So they're trying to allege damages because the candy wasn't spooky enough. Literally, I don't know how you make a Reese's peanut butter cup spooky.
Right.
And look, there are crazy things that happen in our legal system. And again, I'm sure they have a great theory. I didn't understand it myself. But one of the things about our system, guys, is that, and we see this over and over again, and sometimes it's in the form of a prosecutor who's lost their mind on a case and overfiled or charged incorrectly, or sometimes it seems like it's these plaintiffs' cases. Sanity usually somewhere along the line in our process tends to eventually come to light and put an end to these things. And this federal judge shut this thing down, saying that how do you establish damages on something like this? And they dismissed it. So,
well, it's not done, Ashley. This thing is not
done.
over. We have to keep talking about it because the judge, it was Melissa Damian, she's a U.S. district judge, said that the lawsuit failed to show that the lack of detail of the chocolate and peanut butter candies, such as missing mouths or eyes or ghosts weren't like detailed, caused them economic harm. But apparently they're going to refile the lawsuit and allege how it did impact them. Can they do it?
They can do it, but this is one of those times, and I hate awarding attorney's fees, but this is one of those times that attorney's fees might need to be awarded. And I always say this is why we can't have nice things. This is why we can't have a fast and efficient court system, because we have stuff like this. These lawyers kind of need to go back and remember, even though it's the last part of a case, it's the most important part of a civil case, damages. There's no damages here. How are you damaged? It had chocolate. It had peanut butter. That's good for me.
Well, I'll make the argument, Matt. Let me just try. And this is kind of what the defense is saying, okay? You used deceptive advertising, right? They put out an image, whether it be a fast food place, whether it be Reese's. This is what you're going to get. So you relinquish your hard-earned dollars and you say, I want that. And then you take the cover off and you don't get that. You get something very different. Isn't that kind of fraud in a way? False advertising? Deceptive, Matt?
We learn a term in law school called a right without a remedy, right? And this is what the attorney said in this is, well, my clients paid a premium for it, which I think means they paid regular price. So you buy it and it's like, so they're disappointing. What price do we put on a disappointing Halloween chocolate pumpkin? And the answer to that is, I think any federal judge, who's sane, it's like Ashley said, that's perfectly put. This is why we can't have nice things, guys. And this is why we get made fun of at holiday parties that we're coming up to as lawyers. This is one of those that in my view, we look at our shoes and I think maybe they're looking for a settlement, perhaps, again, not saying that there was anything nefarious here, but come on now, guys.
Well, I'm going to put Ashley on the spot. I did to you before, Matt. I'm going to put her on the spot. All right, Matt, here's what you have to do, Ashley. Okay?
I'm ready.
You have to make a strong argument with a straight face that there are actual economic damages as a result of them not giving what they promised on the wrapper.
Okay.
Go.
I got it. Okay.
Go.
So there's a little girl who has had these candies every single year. I'm going to use the Christmas bell shape because she had those every year in her stocking. And she remembered her dad spending his hard-earned money on those. And every single year it was a Christmas memory. It meant more than anything to her. And then all of a sudden she opened that Christmas stocking bell and it wasn't a bell. It was just a blob of chocolate.
Oh.
And she cried. And her dad had spent all of his hard-earned money on those bells, and he wanted that money back so he could go and he could find her an actual bell.
Oh, how much can we give you? How much? Matt and I are writing a check personally. That was very compelling. All right.
That's all I could come up with.
It was good. It was good. It was
pretty good.
All right. Keeping with the Halloween theme, we're moving on to a guy that I disdain, not just because he killed his precious offspring, but he also killed my Halloween experience when I was a kid. I know you guys can relate to this, okay? There was nothing for me better than Halloween. When I understood that concept, Mom and Dad, we could just go to people's homes, say 2 words, trick, treat, and then they're going to give me the one thing that I longed for. Not money for UNICEF, but candy. Candy. They're going to give me candy. I dream about it. And then
I could stay up late.
Right. It was the greatest thing ever. Until, but the candy could be poisoned. Do you remember hearing that? Both of you?
Oh,
Do you remember hearing that?
Oh, yeah.
Poison and razor blades.
So
And
right,
needles.
right. And so it made us paranoid. It was horrible, right? So let's talk about who is responsible for that. Ryan Clark O'Brien. The year was 1974, Harris County in Texas. It's outside of Houston. This guy's with his wife and his 2 children. He seemingly seemed like a normal fella, an optician, a deacon at his church. His financial situation was problematic. He was kind of dire. So he was about $100,000 in debt at the time. Okay, there's your motive, Matt, right? So to get out of difficulties, he concocted this scheme and he bought poison and he put the poison in the pixie sticks. He bought a life insurance policy for $30,000 for each of his children. I'm gonna let you, Ashley, tell us then what he did. This horrible person. Tell us what he did.
It's awful. And, I'm generally opposed to the death penalty, but when I listen to these facts and I think about it, I think, oh, you know what? That's one of those instances where I think I might be able to bend on it.
Tell us.
So he took his son and he took his 8-year-old son along with some of his son's friends trick-or-treating, and he gave him a pixie stick that was laced with poison. And then his son, it gives me goosebumps to even think about it. His son started throwing up almost immediately. He took him to the bathroom and he held him, and within an hour, his son was dead. It's unimaginable how anybody could do that, especially for money. But that's what he did. He took the stand in his own defense and denied doing it. I don't know who he seemed to think he could blame for this, but he was adamant the entire time up until he was actually finally executed that he had not done this. And it was clear he had done it. He had taken out the life insurance policy. He had bought all of the, all of the mixtures that he was going to use to poison his child. And it's just disgusting. How can you do that to your child? Yeah. But so then, what really just compounds it even more is then he started suing over the lethal injection practices, but he took a little bit different approach. He sued saying that the FDA had not approved, now listen to this, had not approved the drugs they were using for the purpose to kill him.
We'll talk about that in a moment. I still want to stick right now with the actual case itself. Matt, you had to determine who should live or die many times, right? You were involved in that decision as a prosecutor, yes?
Many times.
Okay, so here's the question. The Supreme Court has said death is different, meaning you don't just give it out to anyone who kills. While murdering is horrible, not all first-degree murder cases warrant the death penalty. You shouldn't go after everybody to seek the death penalty in first-degree murder cases. I ask you, based upon these facts, would you have sought the death penalty?
Yeah, so I sat on the committee in Orange County for 15 years where we would make the formal recommendation on every special circ homicide. And we sought it of the cases that qualified for the viewer. That's not all murders. That's only special circumstance murders. We sought it in less than 4% of the cases that came before us. So it is like the two fundamental things. It's got to be no real doubt that the person did it. Like you are 100% convinced, and it's got to be genuinely awful. It has to shock the room. And our committee of experienced homicide prosecutors who've done at least 2 capital cases, that was the threshold to get onto our committee. And this one, Mark, I'll tell you, I'm with Ashley. There's nothing ameliorating or mitigating about this at all that I was able to read. This is one where this is the worst, the freaking worst. And one of the things, I think that by sitting in the bathroom with his son, he knew what he had done. He knew his son was dying. He knew exactly what the poison was. And he sat there holding him instead of taking him to an emergency room, watching his son die. This guy has no soul. I hate to say this, guys, but this is one that not only would we have sought it in a heartbeat, Mark. I could have watched this guy get executed and friggin' eat popcorn as they did it. This is so
it's one of the
old. Ashley, it took the jurors 46 minutes. I mean, separate the time that it takes to pick a 4-person, bathroom breaks and eating lunch.
Right. That's it.
This was a slam dunk, right?
Right. They probably took one vote. I mean, seriously, 45 minutes, 47 minutes, that's one vote, like you said. I mean, the time to order the pizza on the government's dime, the time to vote on a 4-person, everybody used the one bathroom, all 12 jurors. I mean, they literally had no discussion on this. And I'm not surprised. I mean, you take killing a child in and of itself is one of the worst things that can happen. But having a parent kill their child when they have that responsibility, that is just, I mean, that is someone that just doesn't deserve to live.
He was given the death penalty, so the viewers know that. In fact, it was Halloween night of 1982 that the court ordered that the sentence be carried out because it took 7 years for appeals, which actually nowadays, that would be amazing. I mean, 7 years only. Right?
Yeah, it really is.
It took 10 years to put him to death. March 31st, 1984. 10 years. That's not bad. People are around to watch that. It's not 20, 30 years later. Matt, apparently it's not good to use lethal injection. He argued that. Ashley talked about it earlier. What were your thoughts upon on his defense team for raising that issue? And what was the specific issue?
Well, the appellate lawyers on that, as we know, their job is to basically throw everything they can at the process and to try their hardest, as desperate as it may sound, to get to delay the execution, to put it off. And that's been very successful in our federal system. Kind of outlandish claims. I mean, not whether that's outlandish or not, I don't know. But it is kind of ironic, right? It's like it's not FDA approved to kill people. But there's been a lot of success with those drugs and the pushback. The death penalty is very, very emotional. I'm very conservative on it. I've personally done 8 of them. So I've put people on death row in California, but you have to be very, very selective, and there can be truly no doubt that the person did it. So it's part of the process here in the Ninth Circuit. Mark, I'm sure it wouldn't surprise you to learn we see even crazier claims than that. You wouldn't believe some of the stuff, and sometimes it works.
Okay. Ashley, would you take a case like that? People are asking me, are there cases you wouldn't take? Could you defend this guy? And let me just entice you. He can meet your large retainer fee, Ashley. Are you taking this case?
It's not that on death penalty cases. And I've handled death penalty cases, and I've represented people that are accused of doing and have done really awful things.
Me too.
I'm against the death penalty generally. This is one of those cases that would probably keep me up at night, but I do firmly believe that everybody's entitled to a constitutional defense. And, so in that respect, I would be able to defend him. But it would be very difficult. And I would have to make sure, because, with death penalty cases as a lawyer, you have to make sure that point in your life that you can emotionally handle it. Because he's probably going to be executed, and he was executed. And so, as a lawyer, you have to be able to handle that, because we suffer vicarious trauma. We suffer it all the time, and particularly with death penalty cases. So, I would have had to make sure that I was able to handle all of those issues at the time. And what you're doing, really, it's like an oncology doctor. Whenever I talk to the other death penalty defenders that I know, we all view it as you are treating a patient who has terminal cancer, and your job is to keep them alive as long as possible. And so that's really why they, these lawsuits you see, I mean, that is your job. And a lot of times I don't want to be an oncology doctor. It is depressing. And so you have to make sure as a lawyer that you can handle that level of trauma.
And what bothered me the most? Is I'd have to look through the discovery. I'd have to learn in detail what he did to his precious child. I'd have to think about how quickly the child died versus not. Now, why does that matter? It wouldn't in the guilt phase, but it would matter in the penalty phase. Did the child suffer? What did the child go through? The last thing I want to do is think about that. Okay, thank you for that, guys. We're going to move on in just a moment, and we're going to talk about closing arguments. I love that segment to hear what's on your mind. And also we'll take your questions. We'll be back in just a moment.
When customers are walking through the aisles of their local Walmart, they're not just picking up groceries or supplies. They are supporting American businesses and their communities. The real story is what's behind the label. With over 2/3 of the products Walmart buys made, grown, or assembled right here in the U.S., buying local is not just stocking shelves, it's about strengthening communities. Because of that commitment, Walmart invested $350 billion in U.S. manufacturing, helping American companies like Fisher & Weezer Specialty Foods, a local Texas business, expand their operations in Fredericksburg, Texas, hire more people as well, and bring their Texas-grown peach jam to a national market. Their story is just one example of how Walmart's U.S. manufacturing investment is supporting over 750,000 American jobs. Businesses across the country are empowered to sell more, hire more, and help their communities grow. From farms to factories to final shopping carts, learn how Walmart is fueling the future of U.S. manufacturing at walmart.com/America at work.
All right, so coming up in just a moment, my favorite part of MK True Crime, our closing arguments and your mail. But first, let's talk about our friend Megyn Kelly, who's going on tour. I'm excited about that. I mean, I'm glad that she asked me to join her. It's going to be cool to join her in Miami at the Knight Center. Anyone watching this from South Florida, I'll be there with my wife. Apparently, they're going to have us do something at the very beginning of this thing. I have no idea if I'll be on a unicycle juggling balls. I have no idea what she's going to ask me to do, but I'll be there. I'll shake some hands and meet some folks. What about you guys? Are you going to any of her tour dates? Ashley?
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm going, I think the day after you, Saturday, November 8th in Duluth, which is actually Atlanta. It's a suburb of Atlanta. I'll be there with Phil Holloway, and we're super excited for that. So I hope everybody
Do you know what you're doing on stage yet?
I was thinking that I would be doing handstands, but what you were saying with the unicycle, that kind of sounds fun too.
All right. And you, Matt, you can do your stand-up routine. What are you going to do?
Yep. So November 21st, I'll be at the Honda Center in Anaheim, and I'm going to be out with our fellow contributor, my buddy Mark Garagos. Mark and I go way, way back. And when we were talking about it before, Mark said, yeah, it's going to be, she's like the Rolling Stones in 1980. And a lot of people have forgotten, but when they toured Southern California, Prince opened for them. And he got booed off the stage. And I have these nightmares of Mark and I. Nobody's going to want to see our silly mugs compared to Megan. And we're either getting the hook that pulls us off the stage, rotten fruit, or maybe we'll get booed off like Prince. But awesome. I'm looking forward to it. Huge honor to be able to do that, I think.
Same here. And I was sharing the same feelings. Like, they're not there to see me. So any minute I speak, right? Like, next. Nobody wants the opening act. All right, cool. So we got some mail this week. Go ahead, Ashley, and I'll have you present that.
Yeah, so it's a question from Matt, actually. It's from Michelle. She said, Matt, I've just finished the Book of Murder. She absolutely loved it. Thank you for allowing us. Yes, that's pretty cool. Thank you for allowing us to hear in length how you went behind all the investigation and convictions and things like that. What she really wants to know is about these cases. She's followed a couple of the cases, but she wants to know if there's going to be a follow-up book.
Well, thank you, Michelle. It makes my day that you read it and you liked it. Yes, as a matter of fact, I just signed with Disney last week, in fact. So there's going to be book number 2. I prosecuted 14 serial killers during my time in homicide. And it's going to be about basically same format, where only one of them, the dating game killer Rodney Alcala, was in my first book. So I'm going to take everybody through my journey and the things I learned. I went into the unit thinking I knew everything about serial killers, and I knew nothing. And I learned a bunch along the way, and I think people are really going to enjoy it. I think it's going to be interesting for everyone, and I really appreciate the question. So hopefully we'll have it out. Our manuscript will be done in May, and then publishing soon thereafter. So I'll be reading the Audible myself again. Yeah. So thank you.
That's exciting. Isn't that nice?
Awesome. Congratulations.
To actually write a book and have people read it and appreciate it. That's wonderful, Matt.
Yeah. And she said, thank you for the respect you showed each victim's family. So she really loved it.
Thanks.
Very nice. All right. Well, it's time for closing argument. Okay. Ladies first. Go, Ash.
All right. Well, so I've been talking about different stages of the criminal case. And, we started with pretrial publicity. We talked about pretrial police statements, whether you should talk to the police, what you should say, and the process for bond release. Today, I want to talk about accomplice liability. And I want to do that because of a case we talked about earlier today, Alicia Andrews' case, the case in Florida, and because I can use it sort of as an example. This is part of the charging decision, when the police decide and the prosecutors get together and they decide who are they going to charge, how broad of a net are they going to cast. And if you look at Alicia's case, she didn't do the actual murder, but yet she's sitting there charged. So I want to talk, and let's see if I can, in a minute or less, sort of explain some of the most complex legal concepts that we learn in law school. So I'm going to do my best. So if you're charged with conspiracy or you're charged with complicity, basically you're being charged for doing something someone else did. Every state has it, but you didn't do it. You're being charged for something that someone else did. The law treats, and a lot of people don't understand this, a lot of clients don't understand this when I tell them, if you were an accomplice, the law treats you the same as it does if you committed the crime. It doesn't require that you agree ahead of time to commit a crime. It doesn't require anything like that. All it requires is that you helped. You did that in words, you did that in acts, you did that in encouragement. And so that's what we saw here with Alicia Andrews. Also, conspiracy. So you can be charged as an accomplice, party to a crime. There's different terms for that, but you can also be charged under a conspiracy, which is what she's charged with. What is that? That requires an agreement between two people to commit a crime. That's it. That and an overt act. But the overt act just has to be in furtherance of whatever you already agreed to. So the agreement itself is actually the unlawful act. So the next thing I want to talk about is I want to talk about felony murder. And I'm going to tie all this together with Alicia Andrews. So felony murder, that is when someone else actually, when you commit a different crime than the one you're actually charged with, but a murder happens. So let's say that you're stalking someone, okay? So in the case of Alicia Andrews, you're trying to stalk someone, and in the process of stalking them, they die. You can be charged with felony murder, which carries the same penalty as malice murder. So let's put it all together with Alicia. So she's charged as an accomplice because she aided and abetted in their theory. She was there. She was the lookout. She was looking around. She was helping track. Okay. So aided and abetted this stalking crime. Okay. So we've got that. Then we've got the conspiracy because she agreed with her boyfriend to do that. And then we've got the felony murder because during the stalking, this murder actually happened. So you've got someone who didn't shoot. You've got someone who didn't agree to shoot. You've got someone who didn't actually even conspire to shoot, but yet they can be charged with felony murder. And they actually could get the death penalty. Would they? Probably not, because they don't have all those aggravators. But could they? Yes. And she is facing a life sentence. So I don't like those crimes. So I just wanted to give a little rant about it and give a little bit of information about how those crimes are, because people don't understand it. They don't know how you can be charged if you didn't actually commit the murder.
Well done, Professor Merchant. Thank you. That was excellent. Matt, I'm ready for your closing argument.
Okay, so a little bit about Halloween for me, guys. I am a huge sci-fi nerd, and ever since I was a little kid, I've loved Halloween. And we watch these slasher movies, and they're entertaining, whether it's Halloween or Friday the 13th, whatever it is. It's really good Halloween fare. And I want to blend that in a little bit with some of the fabric of America for the last few years. Fortunately, serial killers are very, very rare. And that's what those movies all depict, serial killers. And a lot of times there's a psychosexual component to it. There are also rapists like Ted Bundy, like Rodney Alcala that I prosecuted, like others. But the job that detectives have to do in unsorting these, because some of these, as rare as they are real. The FBI estimates that there are between 25 and 50 active serial killers in the United States at any given time, which, if you think about it, 340 million people in the population, that's still really scary. And they are the consummate interspecies predator, and we need good cops to track them down. And the earlier they catch them, they're going to keep doing it until they're caught. It means innocent people will survive and they will live. And we've heard a lot of stuff about defunding the police. And a lot of folks don't understand that when they cut from police departments, they cut from three areas. They cut from education programs like keeping kids out of gangs or keeping kids off drugs. They cut from training, and they cut from specialized units like homicide and sexual assault. The last place they cut are the 911 patrol officers who respond. And those are the ones that everybody was so mad at a few years ago. So just remember, as you're watching those movies, enjoy it. I love Halloween, but remember, psycho killers are real, and we must have good cops that are well trained to catch them and make sure that they don't get our loved ones next. That's my rant. And with that, I hope everybody has an awesome Halloween.
Thank you very much, Matt. Much appreciated. And here's my closing argument. I want to speak to those who are going through personal challenges right now. Even if it's real rough, even if you can't see your way through good times, I assure you this too shall pass. Things will get better. My wife and I learned that lesson about 25 years ago. We were thrilled to get pregnant soon after we got married. I was so excited about being a father for the first time, I would kiss her belly every single night before we went to bed. What should have been a routine sonogram about halfway through our pregnancy left us feeling devastated. We were told that the heartbeat is normal, but our son's brain was growing through his skull. They told us it was encephalocele, a rare neurological tube disorder that affects a fraction of 1% of all newborns. Our child, our first son, would not live outside of the womb. There were no other options. Terminating our pregnancy halfway through ruined us. Personally, we both were just not in a good place. We fought, we argued. We didn't know how to get back to a happy place. I didn't see my way through this whole thing. In desperation, I brought home something that we didn't need, a yellow lab puppy. My wife named her Star with 2 R's because one wasn't enough for her. This dog tore up our house. We had just remodeled. We didn't need a yellow lab puppy, but all the love that we had for our son, we put on that dog. and things were great. We got pregnant again. There was happiness and joy. I remember looking over at Star gnawing on a softball that inadvertently had landed into our yard because the neighbor's daughter played for her high school team. And I said, look how passionate she is about ripping off the leather from that softball. I wish I was half as happy as that dog. Later that day, we had to take the dog into the vet. I'm glad we did. The doctor said the dog needed surgery right away. You see, she had ingested the entire leather portion of that softball and couldn't digest it. She couldn't get it out. I will never forget the noise that my wife made when the doctor called her and said Star didn't make it through surgery. We were back to square one again. We were unhappy. There was conflict. It was dark, and we couldn't see our way through it. Well, fast forward 25 years, we had other challenges like that, but we've got now 3 healthy, spectacular, wonderful kids. We've had a number of dogs since then, including our current golden doodles, Peace and Quiet. Yes, we actually name them Peace and Quiet. The answer is no, we have no peace nor quiet in our home. They wake us up at the crack of dawn and incessantly bark. But we don't look at ourselves as victims. Many people like to look at themselves as victims. We don't. We're not victims. We used to think, why is this happening to us? But instead today, when we have those challenges, we say, we're so grateful that this is happening for us. You see, through our pain, we've grown. There have been lessons that we've learned. Love, gratitude, compassion, appreciation, the list goes on and on. So for those going through a dark time, this too shall pass. You will get through it. I promise you. If you want it to get better, it will. And for all those times that there was darkness in my life, I didn't like it at the time. I still don't want it in the future. But for all those times where I had growing opportunities, I am profoundly grateful. Okay. Thank you guys for joining us, Ashley and Matt. I really appreciate you guys. You are phenomenal MK True Crime contributors, and it has been a privilege spending time with you this afternoon. I'm extremely grateful. I wish you both the very best. And we want to hear from you guys. If you have suggestions, questions, stories, if you want to criticize, that's fine too. That's your right. Go to mktruecrime@devilmaycaremedia.com. Easy for me to say. Let me say it again. mktruecrime@devilmaycaremedia.com. Have a wonderful Halloween, and I hope you all choose to have a wonderful day.